Welcome to the Ear for Fear podcast, the horror movie podcast that boils and ghouls and dead alike are screaming for. Don't be afraid to listen as Rick and the Creeps bore their way into your brains, slither down onto your arteries, into your still beating hearts.
Hi, welcome to the Ear for Fear podcast. This is the podcast that talks about scary movies or movies trying to be scary. I'm Rick, and got a special guest in the house again, Jake Poindexter. It's been a little bit, man.
It has, man. It's great to be back, though.
Yeah, thanks for coming on out. Dude, I'd realized it has been a while. Like, I want to say the last time you came out might have been last year when we did, like, Hereditary and Halloween. Has it literally been that long?
I don't know. I want to say it was before then. Like it's been a couple of months, but it has been a while. Schedules are a bitch, man.
They are, man. I think the last time, and I think it was Hereditary and Halloween. Wow. Shit. And here we are, August. It's crazy.
Yeah. Flies.
Yeah, but I'm glad you came back out, man. Been wanting to get you back out for a bit. You and I today, I thought maybe, I don't know, we could hop in the car, take a trip up the coast.
Absolutely.
I hear Antonio Bay is kind of a cool place to check out.
It is.
The only problem here is around maybe midnight, between 12 and 1, I hear this crazy fog.
Yeah, it comes in.
It comes in, and it's at your own risk, man.
Yeah. Well, you're always going to be dealing with some level of, fog in the
that is true.
California coast.
If people haven't realized it, today we're chatting about John Carpenter's classic 1980, The Fog. You recommended this one, which I was totally on board for because I love John Carpenter and I love this movie, and so I was totally on board.
And I understand we both have a crush on Adrienne Barbeau. So.
Yes, for sure, absolutely. She's fantastic, and she's great in this movie. It's funny. I think the only movie I ever could not stand her in was Creepshow. But of course, it was on purpose because her character was just so terrible.
It was. For me, when I fell for her as a kid, it was Swamp Thing.
Yes, I always forget she's in that one. Yeah, that's another good one.
It is.
And of course, Escape from New York which is one of my all-time favorites. I mean,
great movie.
Great movie. Yeah, man. So, I guess before we kind of jump into it a little bit, I guess we'll do a quick synopsis.
Sure.
Basically, the fog is about it's a ghostly fog rolls into a small coastal town exactly 100 years after a ship mysteriously sank in the waters. And then all hell kind of breaks loose, and it really it's kind of condensed over the course of maybe 2 nights, I would say.
I think 2 days.
Right?
Yep.
And so yeah, I love when you got something that's super easy like that instead of stretches over a long period of time, and it's short and sweet, and that's what we have here. And before we jump into it, I want to let everyone know there's going to be full spoilers.
1, 2 spoilers coming for you.
All right, man. So let's run through the I guess the cast of characters and maybe the actors. That way, really fast. Stevie Wayne is played by Adrienne Barbeau, as we mentioned. Elizabeth is played by Jamie Lee Curtis, a young Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yeah.
Which I want to talk about a little bit because the relationship with her and Tom Atkins is a little weird for me. Is it weird for you?
It's not weird for me because I appreciate the time. It's like
a
guy picks up a hot hitchhiker.
True.
Drinking a beer
good
in
for
the
him.
truck as he's driving. Like it was a different time.
That is true.
Appreciate it.
That's true. Kathy, which is played by Janet Leigh, which of course is Jamie Lee Curtis's mother.
Yep.
Nick Castle, which is played by Tom Atkins, which is funny. And I've seen this several times, and I don't know why I never noticed, because I know Nick Castle is a friend of John Carpenter's, and he collaborated with a lot of his movies. And so it was funny that it was kind of paying homage to him.
Sure.
I thought that was pretty funny. Father Malone is played by Hal Holbrook. And then really there's a few other of kind of the usual suspects that John Carpenter likes to throw in throughout his movies. But I don't want to go to each sure. individual actor or character. But I think that's kind of the the main folk.
Yeah, he kept it in the family with this movie. So.
He did, and I forgot the actor's name, but he was also in They Live. He was the homeless guy in They Live, and then he ended up towards the end when Rowdy Piper's character saw him. He was all dressed up, and I always forget the actor's name, but he was in this as well. And he has a very distinct voice. And again, I'm kicking myself that I didn't write it down, but but he was in a ton of stuff back in that time, and the voice was just so. It's one of those voices you don't forget, and again. Of course, I can't remember his damn name.
It'll come to us.
It'll come to us. Yeah. But that's about it, man. So let's jump right into this thing. Right off the bat, anything that you caught that you may have not have, watching this, because I've seen this several times.
Yeah.
And I assume you have as well. Any other than the Nick Castle thing that I caught, anything that jumped out at you that you may have oh my God, I just noticed that.
Nothing about the film or in the film itself really stood out. It was just an appreciation for the time that this movie came out and the idea that this movie doesn't get made today. It's a nice, quaint, fun little ghost story.
Yeah, for sure. I will say this. I did not pay attention originally to the fact that everything starts to happen around midnight.
Sure.
Midnight to 1, and I think it's because when I hate to jump ahead of myself here. Yeah, let's wait for that, because I hadn't noticed that before. Basically, what's happening here is I'm trying to think, where do we start? We get a cool opening scene with John Houseman, and he's talking about this. He's kind of telling a little bit of a ghost story around the campfire where all these kids are sitting on the beach.
They get meta for a second, where they tell you that what you're about to see is a ghost story, and
Correct.
It's a story that is meant to be told around a campfire to a bunch of scared camping kids. So
yeah, and so we get that in, and I love that intro. It's a kind of a good exposition of like what we are gonna see, and I mean, John Houseman was phenomenal at it, telling this story. I was just completely engaged. I'm like, all right, this is awesome.
Now, was that added after the fact?
I think it was.
That was part of the reshoots. Obviously,
I think it was.
There were a lot of reshoots when they originally went into the editing to make this movie. The story goes that John Carpenter thought that he didn't have a workable movie, and so reshoots, and they were going to have to, amp up the gore a little bit. And
I think that is correct. I think I read that as well. Yeah. Look, the thing that we know that was done, but I mean, when I watched the movie, I don't feel like anything was out of place, really.
No.
I mean, honestly, it's like, I don't know. Let's just call it 90 minutes, and I feel like nothing ever really drug.
Nope.
I didn't feel like they rushed anything. So yeah, I mean,
I do wish they would go back to roughly 90 minutes in a movie. It's a tight story. There's no fat to chew on. I don't know if when DVDs came out, people started craving more and more deleted scenes, and if that had any effect on the average length of movies, but a lot of movies drag on these days, and this one did not.
No, this one, no. And this is what I love about, especially the horror movies of the 80s, dude. They usually are in and out in about 85 to like 95 minutes. Nowadays, you get these 2+ hours, especially some of these, the superhero movies. Why does a superhero movie have to be close to 3 hours?
I have no idea.
I don't understand. I mean, you can literally shave off a half an hour and it's still good.
Yep.
I don't know. Maybe it's because they have so much money that they throw at these things. It's like, well, let's just, I don't know.
I think those movies too are, when you take The Fog and you put it next to a Marvel movie or any superhero movie, you're talking about an auteur's vision. You're a filmmaker versus something that's completely corporate. That's probably the script was written by committee, and you're just dealing with too many different moving parts. It's its own machine that needs to work itself out.
No,
whereas this
true.
was one guy's movie. He wrote it. He directed it. He looked at it. When they were editing it, he decided that it needed reshoots. So it's tighter.
Yeah. I think he did this with Deborah Hill, which he collaborated with Deborah Hill a lot, especially in those late 70s, early 80s movies. They were a great team.
They were married, right? Were they married?
I don't think him and Deborah Hill were married. No, he was with Adrienne Barbeau around that time. I don't know if they were married. It could have just been one of
been a
those,
thing.
yeah, one of those is like kind of like Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn, like they've been
Yeah,
together for
I
like
don't judge.
ever. Yeah, no, man, if it works, then good for you. But I don't think him and Deborah Hill were together. I do think she has passed away. I'm not sure when, but I don't think she's with us any longer. Yeah. So the story here is and definitely jump in if I've left anything out here.
Sure.
So this night is the 100-year anniversary of the town of Antonio Bay.
Yes.
What had happened 100 years earlier is the town was just starting up. So I'm going to assume there wasn't a lot of people.
No.
So it was kind of on the smaller end. They did have a church.
A fledgling settlement.
And the idea was here there was a leper colony that wanted to relocate about a mile down from Antonio Bay.
Yes.
They had a lot of money, a lot of gold.
Yeah, the guy, which I'm
Blake?
spacing on
Is
his
it Blake?
Blake. He was a rich merchant or whatever, and he was afflicted with leprosy, and he had intended to establish a leper colony very close to Antonio Bay.
Yeah. And so they met with let's just call there was I know they keep saying 6 conspirators. Now I don't know. One of them we know was I guess the priest. I don't know. What is priest really the right word?
I don't know, but I have a question about that.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
He too would have been Father Malone. I think.
He was also Patrick. I think it was Patrick Malone or Father Malone, and he would have been the grandfather of Father Malone in 1980. The kind of where the movie is taking place.
Which I don't know if it was different when Patrick Malone was the priest, but how does a priest have kids?
Yeah, I don't know.
Did priests get married back then? Maybe they did.
Maybe they did. I don't know. I didn't even think about it. Because I'm not religious. Can certain religions, if you are a priest, can you have kids depending on the religion?
I mean, maybe the Father Malone we're looking at is a Catholic, and the other father was a Protestant, and maybe different time.
Yeah, and I don't know enough about that to really speak on it.
Nor do I.
Yeah, but so the idea was, okay, well, you can basically come to our town a mile down the road. But they came up with a plan that they were going to screw the entire colony, the leper colony, including Blake and everyone else, over.
Yes.
By creating a fire that they are supposed to follow, because again, this is via ship.
Yes.
And they basically started, I'm not going to call it a false fire, but it wasn't the fire that they told them they would start. And then it led them to crash and hit the rocks and basically would all die, and all of their money, all the gold and stuff, they would recover.
Because my understanding. Yes.
I think similar to that. I mean, it's not as cool as John Houseman's ghost story, but that's kind of the gist.
That was the idea, that they were going to, help him establish this leper colony. In secret, the 6 of them got together and decided that they were going to conspire to murder these people and take their gold and use that to establish their town of Antonio Bay.
Yeah. And so that happened, and the entire colony died. They took all of their money and the gold, more so the gold. I mean, I guess all of it really would have been gold back then, right? Doubloons and stuff.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I mean, because you're talking about, what is that? That was 1980. So 1880?
Yeah.
I mean, in 1880, I don't know. Are you dealing with
banknotes? I don't know.
I am not sure, man.
Yeah.
We find out later that it was
treasure.
Basically, it was
a damn
treasure.
Pirate ship.
Yeah.
It's treasure.
And that's the thing. I know they're leopards, but they look like pirates. Like, I mean, when you see them, you really kind of see you really don't really get a good look at them, a little bit, but they look like they had been underwater, and just their clothes are all tattered, and
they
you
were
know,
seafaring folk.
Yes.
And so he had a sword, and they had
the
different,
sword.
hooks and things for different tasks on the ship. But it all worked really well for the ghost part of it later.
Yes, and the glowing eyes to me. So it's perfect for the 80s, like that kind of neon, almost like a neon green, and it really complemented the fog.
It did.
You know, when when you got that green light hitting the fog, it just looks cool. Anyway,
and they're doing their best. I mean, obviously, a lot of the effects, don't look as great next to what we see today, but
no,
for the time, it looked fantastic.
The thing is, I mean, back then you don't have CGI, so you're gonna use a fog machine, and of course you have to shoot out the fog the best.
Yes.
And at times the fog doesn't look as good as other times. It's fine. It's whatever. I don't have any issue with it because I mean, to me, it's just I don't know. I think back of the time when I first saw the movie, which would have been around in the early 80s. And I love those types of practical effects. And so I just accept it and I'm good with it. I have no problem with it at all.
No, and the use of, the fog machines and the smoke machines, it looks really cool the way that they can get the fog to come on in and then they can reverse it when they need to.
Exactly.
And it looked great. It's, it's very ominous, very... What's the word I'm looking for? I lost the word. Forget it.
That's okay.
But it looks really great when the fog's coming through the town.
Especially with this small. And wasn't this filmed like just up near the Bay Area?
It had to be.
I think
Monterey
it was
or somewhere.
Somewhere there. I forget. I looked this up, and I think it was a few hours from us. It was filmed, and it feels that lighthouse. The lighthouse is awesome. The small town feel is awesome.
Yeah.
So Adrienne Barbeau, which Stevie Wayne, she owns the lighthouse, and she runs and I guess she owns the radio station.
Yes, which I think she inherited.
I don't know if she inherited. I get so this was never explained. What happened to the husband? Did they divorce? Did he die? Because she has a little boy, and the father's nowhere around. And so I was like, okay, did she go through a divorce? Because she says, I think she was from Chicago. I think she goes, it beats Chicago. She looked out the window and she goes, hey, it's nothing but water. But she says something like it beats Chicago or something like that.
That one got by me.
So I assume she was in Chicago. I don't know if something happened to her husband. I don't know if he died or if they went through a divorce. She has her boy, and she does. She owns the lighthouse. She has her own house, which seems to be a far drive away from the lighthouse. Yeah. It seemed like that way to me.
And she's working the graveyard shift because she's always on, at midnight. So
she plays music. She provides, I guess, people with updates. Yep. So like if, I think there's a scene where, oh my God, I didn't write his name down. The one character, the guy that works in
the weather.
The weather guy. I forget. Dan
O'Banion.
Dan O'Banion.
Yeah,
okay. So he gives her updates. Hey, you might want to let so and so know that there's a fog coming in.
Yeah, and they've got kind of a flirty phone relationship thing going on, where at least she sort of flirts with him, but it's more him. It's one-sided.
It's definitely
one-sided.
more him. Yeah. So that is happening.
And he's married, by the way, so he's a little scuzzy.
He's married?
I'm pretty sure he said he was married in the movie. Or she makes a comment about his wife at some point in the movie.
Nuh-uh.
Yeah.
I thought that was someone else. Really? He was married? Oh, then now... Yeah. Oh. I don't remember hearing that. I honestly thought he was single and that's why he would take certain shifts so that he could, talk with her and flirt with her.
If I'm wrong on this, then
okay,
you guys can eat me up in the comment section.
Yeah, but okay. So, yeah, I mean, I guess if he is married, yeah, what an a-hole. So I mean, he gets a different time. He gets his comeuppance later anyways. But so midnight hits on the eve of the anniversary, and then all hell breaks loose in the town, right? Yes. The payphones, which I love seeing those old payphones, they start ringing. Alarms start going off. I think there was a scene at a gas station where the hose popped off and it just started shooting gas everywhere. I looked at it, 89 cents a gallon. Here we are paying like.
Are we going to talk about that?
89 cents a gallon.
89 cents a gallon.
It was so stupid. I'm watching like all that gas spill out. I'm like, damn, that could like fill up my tank.
It could have.
And just little things, like I think there was a lift at a gas station where it looked like they're working on a car and the lift came up. It was all kinds of little crazy crap. And then I think someone's car alarm went off. She went to check it, and then it looked like the chair moved. It was just all these little, a lot
The
of
ghosts have announced that they are
here. A lot of stuff breaking, right? Like windows and stuff
Yeah,
are
there's
breaking.
a convenience store, and I think some bottles come out and hit the ground.
Yeah,
things like that.
the convenience store where he's sweeping up and he's chugging some orange juice and puts it back on the shelf.
Oh yeah, love it. The grazer.
and so yeah, a lot of stuff like that is happening. But
It's the little things that those one-shot characters do that give them a personality.
yes, that's true. Because it gives a little character to it. A little, yeah. Let's see. So, and you said his character's name is Dan.
Dan. Yes.
Dan. Okay, so Dan tells
Dan the weather guy.
Dan the weather guy. So he tells Stevie Wayne that there's still a boat out there, and I forget the name of the boat. Yeah. This wasn't. I
it's
know.
It's gonna come to me at some point. But yeah.
That the boat's still out there, and can you let them? Can you maybe just say something over the radio that that there's a fog coming in. And so, she announces it, and, they hear it. They're out there drinking because, they're fishermen, man.
Yeah.
And
they're not fishing, by the way. They're just out there trying to get away from their wives.
Pretty much. And then one of the guys goes, what is she talking about? There ain't no fog. And then all of a sudden, the fog comes. And then they're out there, and it gets super cold. And then they see the ship. Yep. And they're in disbelief that they're seeing some old, just looks like an old pirate ship
like
or something.
A clipper ship.
Yeah. And then all kinds of shit goes haywire on the boat. Again, stuff breaks. It gets super, super cold. Almost, and I think they talk about it later where it almost was like they like the boat sank, but there's no water anywhere.
Yep.
It seemed like stuff had froze over, almost like salt water had got into an area, but there's no water anywhere.
And I think they had mentioned, was it during the autopsy that they had salt water in their lungs?
I think so. Yeah. I think so. Because, then of course we get I want to say this is our first glimpse of the lepers / what do we want to call them? The ghosts?
The ghosts.
Let's call them the ghosts.
Yeah.
Because I hate saying the word leper. And I don't want to call them pirates because I know they're really not pirates.
Not pirates.
So let's just call them the ghosts.
Yeah.
The ship.
The ghosts of vengeance.
The ghosts of vengeance.
That's
actually a cool name for a band.
Yeah.
The ghosts of vengeance.
About that one.
I like that. Ghosts of
Coming
to the stage. Welcome. The Ghosts of Vengeance.
It sounds like a band, but it sounds like a bad band.
It does sound like a bad band?
Like a bunch of overweight 40-year-olds still trying to live their heavy metal dreams.
They're doing covers of like dead artists, hence the ghosts. I don't know. I'm not sure. So anyways, we kind of get the first look of the ghosts. And I think most of it we're seeing is, we don't really, it's more so kind of like, first of all, we know there's a fog, right?
Yep.
They're basically, they come through the fog. Like during the movie, they're like, hey, stay out of the fog. There's something in the fog, and we get a glimpse of them. We see the tattered clothes. They got hooks and they got all kinds of shit.
But very much less is more. You don't get like a perfect
I'm
view
all
of them.
for less.
Less is more when you're dealing with any kind of a scary, monster or zombie or anything like that.
And it's perfect in the sense that, because it's so simple, right? It's at night, it's fog, and so then then around the water, this small coastal town, it's all these things, all these elements that really make this work, that I don't think would work on a bigger scale. You can't go to city and do this. It just doesn't work. Yeah. And it's so simple. It's like I can hide these figures in the fog,
And the way, when you've got the fog, you can backlight the characters so that you're looking at just a silhouette.
Exactly.
And then when you were saying about the glowing eyes, that's just a perfect next step. It really creates a really scary, spooky image.
Absolutely. And so, okay, and before I forget, so the 12-1, and I don't know if we mentioned this earlier, the 12-1, all this is happening between 12 and 1 on the eve of this anniversary. Yes. And it's because between 12 and 1, 100 years ago is when the conspirators came up with this plan. Yes. We're going to screw them over. They're going to die. We're going to take their money. Yeah. So that's kind of why this is happening around this time. That's why I always find it funny though, man. And again, I know I always use the word suspend belief, and I really shouldn't be thinking of little things, but what's the relevance of 100 years? Is just because it sounded like a good number?
I don't know. Yeah.
It just sounds like a good number.
A good round number.
Yeah. So. I mean, because you always notice that like shit always seems to happen around and even like it's a 50 year or it's 100 years.
It's an anniversary and it's a good round number.
Because but wasn't there a story later on when Tom Atkins' character Nick Castle said he was telling Jamie Lee Curtis about when his dad was on the boat.
Sure.
And he went and he saw a boat on the water and he went in and it was it seemed to be that ship. Maybe. So were there sightings every so many years?
There's ghosts,
I don't know.
So it's not like they appeared. They one way or another they've probably been out haunting the seas this entire time, and they have been putting off and doing a lot of their ghost plans in order to come back.
So they had shit going on.
So maybe
it took them 100 years.
It was a training run for the 100-year anniversary.
So they probably had like a ghost to-do list, and they had to do all these things before they could kind of.
And maybe it was different ghosts. We've established in this film that ghosts exist. Maybe there were other ghosts of
true.
Fishermen
maybe they didn't
died out in sea, and
it's possible that maybe they couldn't cut it, and this group cut it. They were like, okay, well, we know Blake's going to be there, so it's just like, who's going to help me with this, and and the other people just weren't up to par, man. I don't know.
Maybe not, or maybe they're just doing their own thing out there.
Well, what do you think ghosts do? What are they out there doing?
I don't know.
I don't know. They're working on a tan.
Who knows?
I mean, I don't know. They're all pretty pale. I don't know. Anyways,
they're just creeping.
We're just fucking with you people. Okay, so we know that's happening, right? So these guys get it, man. I think one of them gets the sword through his back. The other one gets, I think, the hook twice. Yeah. The other guy gets, I think, does he get the hook to the throat?
I thought he got it in his eye.
Did he get in his eye? Oh shit, I don't remember that.
Maybe.
And then the third guy, which looks to be kind of the younger of the three, he's inside. They come in. He gets it. We'll see him a little later, which I want to talk about. But so then we get Tom Atkins and we get Jamie Lee Curtis. He's driving his old beat up truck. Here is this hitchhiker of Jamie Lee Curtis on the side of the road.
Something that can only happen in a horror movie or a porno.
Exactly.
Picks up a hot hitchhiker.
She's substantially younger. I mean, they don't say she is, but we know she is. Like, Jamie Lee Curtis at that point wasn't that old. And maybe Tom Atkins wasn't as old, but he looked old, dude.
It's the kind of movie. He's not a strikingly handsome man.
No, he's not.
So it's the kind of part that you get when you're a buddy of the director.
Yes, and he's done several with John Carpenter. And Tom Atkins is phenomenal. I love him in everything he's been in. So hey, dude, Tom, if you hook up with what's her name, Elizabeth, good for you. I do love the fact that she goes, she hops into the truck, and then I think he immediately offers her a beer.
Yeah.
And she goes, "Are you a weirdo?" and he goes, "Yeah, yes, I am." And she goes, "Okay, good." I was like, "All right, this is awesome."
Definitely. It was a fun exchange because there's the obvious risk that people are taking. You start
for sure.
worrying about this young gal that's, getting picked up by an old guy who's got a beer in his hand, driving his truck down a dark road.
At midnight-ish. At midnight, yeah. And then, of course, they're driving, and, of course, we got the broken windows,
yes.
Because, again, this is falling between the 12 and the 1 o'clock where everything's kind of going to hell. And then they end up at his house in the sack, and she goes, "Hey, by the way, what is your name?"
By the way, what is your name?
I'm like, dude, this is awesome.
You're like, attaboy, Nick.
What's funny is when you go back and you watch some of these, especially these 80s horror movies, I always think of stuff like none of that shit wouldn't happen today. Like the I don't know, the drive-in while he's drinking the beer, what kind of messages that send these days? And there's all kinds of these things that I can't think of any right now for The Fog, but other movies where it's like none of that shit would happen.
Yeah, well, it's a different time. I mean, the filmmakers in 1980 were not as occupied with the female gaze as they were with the male gaze. So these stories are told from the perspective of the male what would be the coolest thing to happen to the guy,
True.
and not, what
Yeah.
about the woman? She's like, no, she's a side piece in this particular story.
In this particular story, but a lot of the '80s ones, there's always that final girl. So
Absolutely.
this just really wasn't the case here. This is not a slasher, folks. So it doesn't warrant
You're
that.
like, was it necessary to have them, have sex in this movie, or was it just a little
Yeah,
type thing?
yeah. I mean, but they definitely. I mean, she definitely seems to have a thing for him, man. And she was supposed to leave. Where was she heading to? Was it Vancouver?
Oh, I don't know. Wasn't she heading to Southern California?
I thought
Or
she
was
came
coming from.
I think she was
Southern
coming
California?
from Southern California, and she'd been hitchhiking for I don't know a week or two, and I thought she was going to Vancouver. Now I'm going to assume for a job. It always seems to in those.
I don't know.
They always seem to hitchhike in the '80s because of a better job. I remember I thought that happened in Crossroads where Jamie Gertz's character was hitchhiking because of a dancing gig that she had who knows where. They always seem to be hitchhiking for some sort of better employment or something, which is just funny. And she was an artist, right? She was she was drawing and stuff.
She was drawing.
I don't know.
I think she had been trying to sell, or when she was in Southern California, she was selling them and
Try to raise money to get wherever she was gonna go be.
she's a
So-
starving artist.
She's a starving artist, yeah. So, all right. So we know that eventually we're going to know that there's 6 conspirators, which even though we've already said it, 3 have now died on that boat, and I can't remember the name of the boat, but 3 have died, and some other stuff it kind of has happened. But then 1 o'clock passes, and it's kind of the dust kind of settles a little bit. And then we have the 100-year anniversary. Now, because Stevie Wayne works those late hours, she has someone watching her son. Looks like some sort of babysitter. I don't know, a neighbor, nanny, something. But he's out there on the beach, and he sees. It looks like he sees a coin, like a doubloon, like the sun is hitting it, and it's piqued his interest.
Yeah.
And he goes over there and he sees it in the water.
And the tide rolls in, and when it washes back, it's no longer a doubloon.
Yep.
It's
It's a piece of driftwood, and it looks like it has I think it's DANE, right?
I think so. Yeah.
I think it's which we find out later was the name of the boat, the Elizabeth Dane,
Correct.
which is the boat that had crashed 100 years ago. And he brings it to his mother, and she takes it, I think she ends up driving back to the Lighthouse. In the meantime, Nick Castle, Tom Atkins' character, and Elizabeth, they go to the docks because his it looks like like they're friends.
One of his buddies was one of the 3.
Was it? Because I mean, this is a small town, so you think like almost everyone knows everyone, right? But they never came in. He's worried because he's, this is his buddy. No matter how drunk or whatever they get, they always come back.
Yeah,
they never stay
been
out.
Too drunk to stay out.
So he's concerned, and so he calls in a favor. They hop on a boat, him, Elizabeth, and I guess again a friend of his. They find the boat. They go inside. There's no bodies, but nothing seems to be working.
I do love that part about the boat is that the ghosts, after they murdered these fellas, they took the time to
clean everything up,
put them in closets.
Maybe that's what takes the ghosts so long to do stuff, because it takes a little bit to clean shit up. You got to make sure. And then where are they storing the bodies? It's like, oh, okay. Do they have like an extra boat out there somewhere where it's like, okay, well, we can put them down below.
And they're talking to each other the whole time, right? They're saying like, "Hey, Steve, check it out. I'm going to put him in the closet so when they open the door, he'll fall on him."
Yeah, the other guy's like, "Yeah, that's a good gag. I never get tired of that gag." Which of course happens, right? But he's worried. Elizabeth says something like, I feel like this is all my fault because as soon as I came into town, all shit broke loose. And he's like, it's not you. And then he goes to tell him the story about what his dad had told him. And again, I believe this is Blake's ship, because he was talking about a doubloon where his father, went on this boat and didn't see anybody, but he saw, I don't know if it was one coin, one doubloon, and he picked it up, he put it in his pocket. He came home to tell the family the story, and the doubloon was gone.
Yeah.
you know, and so and then of course, yeah, we get the third guy, the younger of the three, basically falls onto Jamie Lee Curtis's character Elizabeth, and they take him back to town, and I don't know who this is. Is this a doctor? Is this the coroner? I don't know what this is.
Some kind of tech in the morgue.
Again, these are small towns, so I don't know. My guess is like, you know, one guy or one gal has like 8 different jobs. You know, it's like I work at the bar and I'm also working for the county recorder and then all these other things.
Absolutely.
You know, so they examine him. And he's like, you know, and he pulls Nick out and he goes, I mean, I just saw him 2 days ago, but it looks like he's been underwater for like a month or something?
Yeah, a long period of time.
You know? Okay, so tell me, how the hell did he get up off of the gurney or whatever and walk towards her? I mean, he's clearly dead.
I mean, that part has always stood out to me. Like, this part really doesn't make any sense. Like, they're not reanimating corpses in this movie or anything like that. There are ghosts, and we do know that this was a scene that was added.
This was one that was added? Okay.
And they're just like, you know, we got a dead body here. Why don't we have it do something creepy? Let's just, you know, up the factor. And so that part has always stood out to me as it wasn't really needed. If
I was to say anything, it would be that part. Like, that's the only part I really have, I guess, an issue with. I mean, obviously it's like, well, the things are coming out of the fog and I'm okay with that, but you know, well, yeah, I am. Yeah. But this, it was like, but I get it, because he took the scalpel and wrote 3. Yeah. You know, which obviously there's 6 conspirators, 3 are dead, and now we need 3 more in order to really kind of, I don't know, let you guys off the hook here.
It's very important to these ghosts that they explain why they're doing what they're doing and exactly what they have done and will continue to do.
Yes.
So wasn't there a thing that says 3 more will die or something like that?
Yes, because when Stevie has that, she takes the driftwood to her the lighthouse, and it's sitting on, I don't know, it's sitting on a table, and all of a sudden it starts to
fill up with water.
Yeah, which I thought was a pretty damn cool effect. I don't know how I always geek out over little things, and I'm sure it's probably the simplest effect, but I love those simple effects. And I'm like, how the hell did they do that? Like did they have something underneath and they kind of like some sort of like
some sort of a hose that's
and then
drilled
they just
into the back of the wood, and they've got little holes drilled into the back so that they can channel the water. And I don't know, but
I mean,
obviously
like
it's
that.
A very cool effect, and
it's a cool effect. And then all of a sudden, doesn't she looks at it and it says, 3 more will die, and does it catches on fire? Yeah. So it catches on fire, even though it's okay, it's like gasoline. Drenched with water. And so she puts it out, and so I'm trying to think. In the meantime, Kathy's character, which is played by Janet Leigh, I don't know what she is. She's not like the mayor or whatever of the town. Is she some sort of like, I don't know what she is, but she's planning this event, this 100-year anniversary. They got a little tiny statue.
Yeah, the town manager.
Whatever.
Like
I don't know what that is. I don't know if it's I don't know what it is. I don't want to say.
She's in charge of running the party, and I think what they had just commissioned a statue of the founders.
Yeah,
of the town.
little tiny statue.
So she's in charge of running the party for the 100-year anniversary of Antonio Bay.
I don't get the impression that this town is that big, because when they eventually had the get together, there wasn't a lot of people, maybe 50, 75. I don't know. Town. Maybe people had other things to do, maybe, I don't know.
And the smaller the town, you realize that this would be much more of a big deal. The smaller the town.
Yeah.
Bigger the town, not as much of a big deal.
I mean, the sheriff was there. I think the mayor was there. She Kathy's assistant, I always forget her name. She was in Halloween.
She was in Halloween too.
And I always forget her damn name. I forget her name. I
always want to say Debbie, but I think everybody from the 80s was named Debbie.
Was named Debbie. Do you ever know
Nancy Keys?
Nancy Keys. Okay. I know she was in other things, but the 2 things I always remember her from is The Fog and Halloween.
Absolutely. But she was beautiful.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Oh, yes, for sure. So that's happening. I don't know, man. I mean, honestly, we're getting close to where they're going to do the ceremony. It's getting dark. The fog's coming. okay.
The stage is set for what's
The
gonna
stage
happen
is set.
tonight,
Yeah. It is now. It's the anniversary. They want their money back. They need 3 more lives. Now let me ask you this. Okay. So the night before, it happened between 12 and 1. I get that. This happened around like 8 o'clock. Shit was going south. Like I was looking at the clock that was, I think, in the Lighthouse, and I thought it said something like 6:37, something like that.
Sure.
And then the fog came in. Let's call it 8 o'clock. So do they not stick to the 12 to 1? Like, is that out the window because it's?
This is something that's going to be going on over the next 2 days, and I think the real climax of what's going to happen is going to happen between 12 and 1. But it's going on. Little things are happening the whole time, right?
Yeah.
12 and 1 the night before is when they kind of announce their presence and things go haywire.
True.
And then little things are happening throughout the day and leading into the night. Now, was it when Father Malone discovered the hole in the wall? When he
we haven't even
discovered-
talked about
his
that.
book.
That's important.
That
The
was
diary.
the night before, right?
It was around 12 o'clock.
Yeah.
Because the little cameo by John Carpenter was a little after midnight. He comes in to talk to Father Malone, and
He was already drinking.
yeah, he was already drinking, and then he leaves, and then the thing crashes onto his desk, and he starts reading this diary, which of course is very important.
Yeah, which provides the exposition for the whole story. The whole time.
Everything. And so, and then at one point, I think Kathy and then her assistant go to talk to the father, and he reads this passage out of this.
Now, had he called them over? Because I think he read it and he had figured out what was going on, and I didn't know if
I don't think
he had
so.
called them in, but it was very important to him to communicate to them exactly what he's discovering. That the founding of our town is a lie. It was based on murder. It was based on stealing. And
I think their intent was to go there to talk to him about something that had to do with the ceremony, because I think Kathy had said, "Hey, are you going to be there tonight?" And then he starts to talk to them and starts reading the passages from the diary.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, Kathy's husband was on that boat. He was one of the ones to die.
That's right.
She doesn't know this though. And God, that'd be nerve wracking. And so at this point, man, I think unless there's something that we've missed, I think this is where dark has come.
Yeah, the stage is set.
Stage is set for
Night
kind
is
of
falling.
Yeah, and at one point, okay, so fog comes through, and Dan, Weatherman Dan, is that his name?
Yes.
He comes in and he talks with Stevie's character and I think she lets her know she's a little uneasy with everything that's kind of transpired, especially with that driftwood turning, basically saying that catching on fire, all these kind of things that are happening.
Good.
And I'm trying to think, man, and again, you're going to have to jump in here. At one point does I know they talk with the sheriff, and the sheriff is at the ceremony. And then I think Nick and Elizabeth are at the bar, right?
Yes.
They're having a drink, but then they hear Stevie's voice, and then he decides to call her up and talks with her a little bit. And she kind of explains what's been happening. Same with him, right? Does that sound about right to you?
Yeah, he's figuring something out. Like, have they established that the fog bank is out there at this point? The weatherman Dan's telling her that the fog is out there, and they're starting to put 2 and 2 together and
that they
figure
believe
out
something.
that
Yeah,
something's going on, and it's connected to this fog bank that's rolling in.
Yeah. I what's funny, man, is in some movies, it's like, well, if I told you something's in the fog, you're like, yeah, whatever. And then you spend an hour and a half trying to convince me that, or convince them that it's not. They were immediately on board. There didn't have to be a lot of convincing that something was in the fog, which I love, because I don't want all these people, you sure there is, and blah, 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 and all this other shit. No. It's like they seem to be immediately on board.
Yes.
Something isn't right.
They had established already that before they lost contact with the ship the night before, they had said that there was a fog bank that rolled in, and the fog bank rolls back out, and these men are dead. They establish that the fog bank is coming back in, and there's just have been enough creepy things happening to these particular people that they have decided something's up. I don't like it.
Yeah.
Let's.
And didn't they say that there was a glow to it too? Right?
Yeah,
didn't she say
like
there was there was a glow to the fog?
that there was something creepy about it.
Yeah, yeah. And so, so he calls up Stevie, Nick's character, calls, and I think him and Elizabeth hop in the truck to go, and I think they were going to go drive to talk with her at the
Lighthouse.
The Lighthouse, and then, I think the fog comes over to Dan, Weatherman Dan, and he ends up opening the door, and of course he gets it.
Which had they already had their conversation with Father Malone, and he was basically saying like vengeance is coming. Like he had come to that conclusion.
I think so.
And he was just a drunk priest babbling. But he had said that, and then these people, they're starting to take it more serious.
I think that had already occurred, because I think when Kathy and her assistant went over there, it was daytime, and he tells them the story, and then of course now we're at night. So I'm pretty positive that has already occurred. So Weatherman Dan gets it.
Fog's coming in.
Yeah, Fog's coming in. He answers even though he's on the phone with Stevie. Stevie's like, do not answer it. There's something in the fog. Something is not right. Don't answer the door. He's not listening.
No.
And, so he answers the door. He gets it.
He's still flirting with her.
He is still flirting with her. And I think he's number 4. So he's the 4th.
He would be number 4.
Yeah. And then, and of course, it's funny, man, that the fog, once it gets a victim, it starts to shift. What do you got?
Was he number 4? Because the nanny got it, too.
The nanny got it, but she was 5.
She was 5.
She was 5. And so, so Stevie is on the radio. Hey, can anyone get to, because she sees the fog is shifting. But I know Nick and Elizabeth go to where Weatherman Dan was. They see the door is open. There's glass everywhere. They end up leaving.
And she knows that the fog is now coming to her house.
To her
Kid
house.
is alone with
Correct.
the nanny.
Yeah. So her son Andy, I think. I noticed this, man. I cannot. So many kids, especially in the 80s horror movies, the little kids were always named Andy, dude. In Child's Play, dude, I could go on and on. It's like, was that like just some standardized name that's just made it easy?
Maybe.
It's like, hey, look, we're gonna have a kid. We're just gonna call him Andy.
I don't know. That's my kid's name.
Is that your kid's name?
Kid's
Is
name is
Andy?
Andrew, yeah.
Oh, that's so funny. Right?
Hey, Andrew.
It's just
Toy
a popular
Story. I mean,
Toy Story. Yes,
it's a
dude.
terrifying film.
I can't think of a ton of movies right now, but I guarantee you go back to a lot of these movies, and the child's name is always Andy.
It's a good name. It's like Robbie or Mikey.
Solid name, man. And so she's on the radio. Hey, if anyone can get, my son is there, please get there. And then I think at that point is when Nick and Elizabeth start driving to her house.
Yes.
And the fog, of course, comes through to Stevie's house, and there's that creepy kind of knocking, that knocking on, and it's not like a regular.
With the back of a hook.
Yeah, dude, it's not like a regular knock, like hey, it's like And to me, it's like, don't answer the damn door, man. It's like, why would you answer?
Especially when the fog rolls in and it's obviously not fog, it's smoke from a smoke machine. It was a serious fog that'll come in under a door like a house fire.
Yeah, but then the babysitter, I forget her name, the elderly lady, she sends Andy to his bedroom. She answers the door. Of course, she gets it.
Yeah.
And I forget. I don't think they really showed her death.
No. You see her get hit, and it was a really cool shot actually, because you see her get it and then gets pulled into the fog, and then 2 other arms come around the back of her and kind of wrap around. So you see that she just got done by
that's
3
true.
goes,
That's right. I forgot about that. But he's in his bedroom and his door is locked, and they're coming for him because now there's 5. There's 5 now dead, and they need 1 more and their money.
And I don't think our characters understand. I think Father Malone is the one that understands this. Stevie's probably got the idea because she saw the driftwood that said 3 more will die.
3 more will die.
So we know that this is 5, and they have to actually break Andy's bedroom window, right?
Yes.
Pull him out at the last second.
Yeah,
dramatic
and
rescue.
right at the nick of time. And then, of course, we got the whole trope of the car just won't go. Like, it starts up fine. I thought at first it won't start because they never seem to start. This was it was it was like a mud, and the tires kept spinning. And as they are slowly starting to creep up onto the truck where all three of them are, she finally gets it in reverse and gets out of there. And at this point, the fog is kind of going through town. And now this is what I didn't understand is how was she able to tell where the fog was going? Like, she knew it was going down 5th Street, and now it's at,
she had a good vantage point from the lighthouse, and she could see into town. I mean, I'm advocating for it at this point, but she could see where it was. It's going down 5th Street, and that's at that point she's telling everybody, get to the old church. That's the last stand. That's the Alamo.
Which is really, like, I would think the last place you want to be.
Like, get out of town. Don't get to the church.
Get out of town.
Get on the highway and get moving. But
that's what I'm saying.
Then we don't. The script has to happen.
For the convenience of the movie. And so that's where Nick, Andy, Elizabeth, Kathy, and her assistant.
Sandy is her assistant.
Sandy. Okay, good. I didn't write that down for some reason. And they basically get to the church. They get inside. And I think then at that, Father Malone gives them a little exposition, like, "Hey,
he's hammered at this point.
Is he pretty hammered?"
And I think had he at that point already pulled the golden cross out of the walls, because that's what he had realized. What he had read in the diary too was that they had betrayed the guy from before and taken all of his gold. But
that was Blake, right?
Yeah, Blake.
Yeah,
and he had stolen it from the conspirators. So he had taken it and,
So let me get this straight.
How did he smelt it into that giant cross and then hit it in the walls of the church?
So there was 6 of them, and the original Father Malone was one of the 6. He screwed the other 5, took all the gold, melted it, and made a cross out of it, and put it in the wall.
But how did they establish the town if he had stolen the gold from them?
That's what I don't understand. My guess is that there was a shit ton of it.
Maybe.
And he took whatever he could and melted down to make this. Or, dude, I mean, who knows? Did he feel any sort of guilt?
How did he get away with it? Did he kill the other 5? Because he didn't go anywhere, obviously. The gold is taken and stolen. They know that only 6 people in town know where it is or know about the gold. So how was he able to get away with that crime?
Do you think, okay, hold on, we're just spitballing here. Do you think maybe the other 5 just died over time? He was the last to survive and he took it all and melted it down and just, I have no idea, man.
It's one of those things that's a good thing about a good, tight, simple story is that you are going to have these questions that come up afterwards, and you don't need people second guessing the story and say, well, if he did this, then how about that?
Yeah.
Sometimes shit just happens.
It just happens.
And that's the way it went down. Yeah. And we don't need to ask questions about it because it takes you out of the movie.
It does. And I'm okay not knowing, but because you and I are bullshitting right now, I do kind of would like to know a little bit, but I don't have to. I don't know. But so he stopped. He when he was reading the diary, he didn't read all the way through. He's like, I couldn't read anymore. Yeah. Well, you should have, because it would have told you that, because it took them like 2 seconds to break down the rest of the wall and get this big old like cross of gold.
What do you think that thing weighed?
Oh, dude, that thing looked like, I don't know, 50, 75 pounds, easy, because he was struggling with that.
Yeah, gold's heavy.
Gold is, especially solid gold's heavy.
Yeah.
And
how did he melt it into that cross?
I don't know. It looked good, though.
Yeah.
It looked damn good.
It was polished, man.
I mean, I don't know. Do you hire someone? It's like, hey, I got all this gold.
But then you
keep it on the down low. Keep it on the down low. I'll throw a couple extra, pieces of gold for you, but I want you to melt it down, and it's got to look good. I don't know. But then why? I don't know, man.
Just his guilt got the better of him. He was a man of the cloth, and he just didn't feel right, with what they did to Blake. But he then double-crossed the conspirators and took the gold, and then didn't do anything with it. So they took some of. I mean, obviously, I think he said that we took some of it and founded this church, some of it and founded the town, and then whatever was left over, he had stolen.
Yeah,
and got away with it. So
and got away with it. But I mean, I'm sure he paid for it once he passed, right?
Sure,
I
sure.
mean, he wasn't going to heaven.
I mean, he wrote everything down. It was a lot of weight to carry.
Yeah. So they're in the church. All of them are, except the only one that's not is, of course, Stevie, who's in her the lighthouse.
Lighthouse.
And we know that the fog is going to find her.
Yep. And at that point, I think the fog is starting to engulf the lighthouse, which is weird because the lighthouse is on the coast. You would think that if it had gotten into town, and that's me doing that again.
So I think, do we just have to believe that there's certain types of fog? Like you got like the big group fog, and then you got the smaller group fog, like Blake's fog is like the main fog, right?
Sure.
Like this is the main crew, and there's going to be like a dozen of us. I don't know. And then you got like the mini fog, which is maybe 3 of them rolling into where Stevie is.
Sure. I mean,
I
maybe
don't know.
it's coming in sort of a formation, like you're invading, Germany in 1945, and it's got kind of the point that comes in through town, but then it gets flanked by the reinforcement fog coming around the back. So
It could. Yeah. I mean, I don't know.
But it all works well, and these are dumb questions to ask. You're not going to be able to enjoy yourself watching anything if you think like we do.
Yeah, no. And so they're breaking into the church. They're trying to do their best to put stuff in front of windows and stuff. So that Blake and his crew. Yeah, Blake and his crew. And then in the meantime, Stevie is trying to get literally to the tippy top of this lighthouse.
Yeah,
there's nowhere else to go.
Yeah, she's had to bar the door at the bottom. The fog was getting in, so she put a ladder in front of the door or something, and then she had to go to the top. It's coming up. She can see it's coming up the ladder. I think at that point she can hear someone downstairs.
Yes.
And then she has to literally climb out the window and onto the roof of the lighthouse.
Literally gets to the very tip of the lighthouse. Like there is nowhere else to go. In the meantime, the people at the church are trying to, they're trying to do their best. But the idea here is, hey, look, I think Blake wants his gold back, and they need a sixth victim. The sixth person has to suffer. And it makes sense that it's Father Malone because his grandfather was part of all of this.
And he confronts them with the gold, carrying that big
he goes
cross.
out, and they're all just kind of standing there. And I love this part because, again, the fog and the figures and the glowing and all of these things are happening here, but they're just stationary. And I love shit like that because it's almost more eerie when someone's not moving and it's almost like if you were somewhere and someone just starts staring at you and they don't move, they just start, it's creepy, man.
Yeah, and he's waiting, they were waiting for Father Malone, who decides that this is his cross to bear.
No pun intended.
Walks out and gives us the last bit of the exposition we need for the film, and that is that here's your gold. I have your gold. I'm Father Malone. I'm the sixth conspirator. Take me.
Yeah. And they take the gold,
and takes the gold, and it automatically turns glows bright and melts and
almost like they disappear. Now in the meantime, though, at the lighthouse, Stevie has to fight off these ghosts, and I think there's about 2 or 3 of them, and I think one of them gets her in the shoulder or something,
with
and
a hook or something.
with a hook, and but then once
which, by the way, I think that was one of the scenes that they added after the fact.
Was it?
That they had decided that she needed to be in some sort of mortal terror, whatever. She was in trouble.
Yeah.
And so they added that scene where she has to climb out onto the roof.
I'm okay. I liked that scene.
That was a good scene.
I mean, that feeling of like, shit, I can't go anywhere else. Like, I'm here. This is it. So I'm either going to die or I have to take some sort of stand. And I don't know. Hopefully these ghosts are clumsy and they fall. I don't know. But once they get the gold, they all kind of disappear.
Yep. They turn around and poof.
Really fast, Blake, the main ghost. I looked this up, was played by Rob Bottin, which everyone would know did. He's like phenomenal makeups, but he did the practical effects for the Thing, and I think The Howling as well. But I had no idea
He's a legend.
And so I wanted to throw that out there before I forgot. But you know, so they all kind of think everything's good, right? I mean, they got their gold. There's no more fog. Shit. Let's continue with the party, man. 100 years
rolling back out. Well, the scene that always stuck with me was, you know, Stevie Wayne getting back onto the radio, and she sends a message out to any of the ships that might still be out in the bay and says, "Look for the fog."
Yeah.
But I like that one.
I do. And then it looks like kind of Father Malone is kind of, let me tidy up before I go to bed. I mean, I don't know. And then I think that he sees some fog, and then and they're just again standing there.
I love it. The fog disappears. They go through the trouble of disappearing the fog, and then poof, it comes under the door again.
Comes under the door, and he's just kind of standing there looking at him, and then we get that Blake is behind him with the sword, and we get this, you know,
the swing,
and then it just cuts. Dude, it's a fucking awesome ending.
I don't know if that was one of the scenes that was added after the fact, but it was a great way to end the movie. Like, nope, they need their 6. You gave them the gold back, but they're taking their 6.
They need the 6, man. They had a quota to meet. You're the 6th one. I love endings like that. I love those abrupt endings where I don't feel like I'm missing anything. Like, well, what the hell? I don't know. I didn't get that at all. Like, this is perfect. And that's it.
It didn't need a happy ending.
No.
It did a happy enough ending that all the innocent people survived.
Yeah, the ones that didn't screw over the colony 100 years ago.
But the sins of the father were visited on the son, or the grandson in this case.
But yeah, that's the fog, man. I'm trying to think if there was anything we kind of jumped around a bit, but I don't know if there's anything that I'm trying to remember if I wanted to talk about. I think I got everything. Anything that you?
No, this is just it's a great movie. Go back and watch it if you haven't seen it. If you haven't seen it, then why are you listening to this anyway?
Yeah.
But it's a good tight story from an era that was really full of these good scary movies.
Solid. I mean, John Carpenter had just a string of solid movies. I would argue probably up until maybe Escape from LA, but anything from Halloween to Escape from LA were just, well, I think he did Village of the Damned. That wasn't great, but dude, from Christine to The Thing, I mean, The Fog just is.
He was in his prime when he did
this. Dude, he was rolling, man. I mean, he was knocking out, I mean, Big Trouble in Little China. He was hitting him out of the park.
His second feature film, right?
I thought, hold on a second. He did Halloween.
And I think
that
he
was
did a couple
78. Was Halloween 78?
He did the Elvis, the TV movie of
Elvis
with Kurt Russell.
And I think Attack on Precinct. Shit, I'm trying to remember the name of it. I think that was prior.
Attack on Precinct 13.
I think that was prior to Halloween. Shit, dude, I'm terrible. Like, I know at some point he squeezed in Starman in there.
I think Starman was after. I think that was later in the 80s.
You know, The Thing, Christine, Escape from New York,
The Thing was
Big
82,
Trouble in China.
So that was after this.
Dude, he was killing it.
He did.
Like, I mean, at least, I don't know. Maybe other people out there would disagree, but he's always been one of my favorite directors, if not my favorite director. And he just, I mean, because I grew up in the 80s, like, I know these are more, I think they're great movies, but other people might think, well, like, what are you talking about? They're not that great. Well, for me, they are. I grew up on them. They're very nostalgic for me. I don't get tired of them. I can't tell you how many times. Just for instance, like Escape from New York, Big Trouble in Little China, 2 of my favorite. I've seen them, dude, 100 or more times. Like, I don't get tired of them. No. They're just fun for me. And then I think back of when I was growing up in that time frame and how old I was and who my friends were and what I was doing. And I just reminisce. And so, you know, that's what John Carpenter is for me. And, you know, and he tells a great story. And
there was there were no characters in this movie that stood out as being unbelievable, or, I mean, there were scenarios that were like, oh, okay, that's not going to happen these days. Yeah. But the characters looked the part. You know, Jamie Lee Curtis looked like a gal that might be hitchhiking to Vancouver, you know, in 1982. You know, Nick Castle looked like your average working class, you know, guy that might be driving a truck with a beer in his hand on the street. The kid looked like the kid. The nanny looked like the nanny.
Yeah,
they acted the part. So the characters, you know, it wasn't a character study by any means.
No, not at all.
But they all played their roles and they played them well. They didn't overplay their parts. You know.
No.
She played. You know, Adrienne Barbeau played a great radio, I would have believed her if she was a real radio DJ. So.
Yeah, no, for sure, man.
That sultry voice.
For sure, man. Absolutely. So yeah, I think that's it, man. I think that's The Fog. I think we hit on just about everything. Before we wrap this up, anything you want to? How's the band coming? Lesser Sons.
We just played 2 shows. We played a show last weekend and then one up in Carson City the week before that. But we don't have anything on the calendar now. We're just getting ready to go into the studio and start working on our new EP. So
cool.
I'll let you know when that comes out.
Yeah, for sure, man. Well, I always love having you out. I appreciate you coming out. I'm glad. Hopefully, people stuck around and listened to us ramble about 1980s The Fog. I guess that's it, man.
Go give it another watch.
Give it another watch. That'll do it for us, man. Everyone, take care. You listened all the way to the end. We appreciate that. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Ear for Fear Podcast, Twitter at Ear for Fear, and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Ear for Fear Podcast. You can also check out our website, earforfear.com. There we list news and events. We're available on all the main platforms, so make sure you tell a friend. We hope you come back and get an earful.